warm sunlight streamed into a small house in a quiet residential neighborhood. Jennifer Hartman sat in her wheelchair, gazing at her computer screen from a desk positioned by the large window in the living room. She worked from home as a graphic designer, and her sophisticated design sense was highly valued by local businesses. "Jenny, lunch is ready," came her mother Martha's voice from the kitchen. Jennifer paused her work at the sound of her mother's call. Martha had been devotedly caring for her daughter for over 30 years. Ever since her daughter had become paralyzed from the waist down in a fall down the stairs when she was 6 months old, Martha had dedicated her life to caring for her. "I'll be right there, Mom." Jennifer maneuvered her wheelchair toward the dining table. There, beautifully arranged, was her favorite chicken salad sandwich and fruit. Her mother's cooking skills were well known in the neighborhood, and Jennifer felt deeply grateful to be blessed with such a loving family. "You look busy today. How's the new project going?" Martha asked as she sat down beside her daughter. "It's going well. It's a brand renewal project for a local restaurant chain. I need to finish it by next month, so I'll be a little busy." Watching Jennifer work, you could almost forget she had a disability. She had majored in graphic design in college and started working as a freelancer from home after graduation. Though she began with small projects, her talent and professionalism were gradually recognized, and now she earned a stable income and was financially independent. The sound of the front door opening broke the peaceful moment. Her father Robert had returned from work. Drawing on his years of experience at an insurance company, he now volunteered with a local nonprofit organization. "I'm home. I got off early today." Robert approached his daughter in her wheelchair and gently patted her head. "How are you doing, Jenny?" "I'm fine, Dad. I'm busy with a new project, but I'm enjoying it." A proud smile spread across Robert's face. "Our daughter is such a hard worker. We're so proud of you." In the evening, her sister Linda stopped by after work. She worked at a nearby accounting firm and visited her parents and Jennifer 2 or 3 times a week. Linda was married but had no children, and she doted on her younger sister Jennifer like she was her own daughter. "Good evening, everyone," Linda called out, still in her work suit, as she hurried to her family. "Linda, you must be tired. Why don't you stay for dinner?" Martha suggested. "Thank you, Mom. But my husband got home early today, so I just came to see everyone." Linda crouched down beside Jennifer's wheelchair and took her sister's hand. "How's work going? Don't hesitate to tell me if there's anything I can help with." "Thank you, Linda. But I'm fine. I want to do what I can by myself." This was the Hartman family's daily routine. On the surface, it was the picture of a loving family without any problems. The parents had accepted their daughter's disability and had been devotedly supporting her for over 30 years. Sister Linda also loved her younger sister from the bottom of her heart and was always looking out for her. Jennifer herself had accepted her situation and was contributing to society by making the most of her given talents. However, recently, Jennifer had begun to notice subtle changes in her family.
Can you imagine making $10,000 a month just from YouTube, all from home? That's exactly what I did with Reddit Stories. No face, no voice. Check the link in the description if you're curious.
Conversations between her parents and sister would often stop abruptly when she was present. There were increasing instances where they seemed to want to talk about something but would become evasive when she was around. "They must be worried about my future," Jennifer told herself. At 32, she was still single, and as a family, they might be concerned about marriage and her future. Because they were such a loving family, they probably hesitated to discuss their concerns in front of her. At night, when she was alone, Jennifer sometimes reflected on her life. The accident at 6 months old had left her unable to walk, but she still felt she was living a fulfilling life. Her family's love, success at work, and an independent lifestyle. There were certainly limitations, but she took pride in doing her best within the circumstances she was given. Jennifer hoped this peaceful daily life would continue forever. In October, Jennifer received the news she had been waiting for. Pacific Bistro, a major restaurant chain operating throughout San Diego, wanted to entrust her with a complete brand renewal project for all their locations. This project would be a major turning point in her career. She would handle the total branding for all 12 locations, including logo design, menu layout, and interior decoration concepts. That's wonderful news, Jenny. Martha was genuinely happy about her daughter's success. Your talent has finally been recognized. Thank you. But I'm going to be very busy from now on. I only have 3 months until the deadline. Jennifer immediately began making detailed plans for the project. From on-site surveys of each location to target demographic analysis, competitor research, and actual design work, a massive amount of work awaited her. She expanded her workspace in the corner of the living room, adding new monitors and filing cabinets for organizing materials. When the project began in earnest, Jennifer's daily routine changed dramatically. She woke up at 7 in the morning, had a quick breakfast, and immediately got to work. She ate lunch quickly and even begrudged the time for dinner, throwing herself completely into her work. Although she worked from home and was physically close to her family, mentally she was completely focused on the project. Jenny, why don't you take a break? Linda asked with concern. You mustn't wear yourself out. I'm fine, Linda. If this job succeeds, I might get even bigger projects. Now is the time to work hard. However, because she was so focused on work, Jennifer began to notice subtle changes in her family. At first, it was small things. When her parents and sister were talking in the kitchen, the conversation would suddenly stop when she approached in her wheelchair. What were you talking about? Jennifer would ask, and Martha would answer hurriedly. Oh, about Mr. Johnson next door. He's been feeling unwell. Oh my, that's concerning. However, Jennifer's intuition told her that her mother might be hiding something else. For a conversation about Mr. Johnson, the three of them looked far too serious. A few days later, the same thing happened again. This time, her father Robert and Linda were talking in low voices in the living room. When Jennifer came out into the hallway to get some materials, she could hear their conversation. It's been over 30 years, and we're still dragging this along, came Robert's voice. But Dad, is this really okay? Jenny doesn't know anything, Linda's voice was trembling. She's better off not knowing. There's nothing we can do about it now, and the child is living happily. Jennifer held her breath and listened. The two were clearly talking about her. She didn't know what they were discussing, but 30 years ago would be around the time she was born. Good work today, Jennifer called out to them in a deliberately bright voice. Robert and Linda turned around in a panic, forcing unnatural smiles. Jenny, how's work going? Robert changed the subject. Fine, thank you. But what were you talking about earlier? Something about 30 years ago. Linda and Robert exchanged glances for a moment. The tension in that instant was palpable to Jennifer as well. About an old friend, Linda answered awkwardly. An old classmate contacted me recently, and we were just reminiscing. I see, Jennifer smiled, but doubt was growing in her heart. That night, Jennifer found herself deep in thought alone. Her family's behavior lately was clearly not normal. Conversations stopped when she approached, and when she asked questions, she got vague answers. The talk about 30 years ago, and her father's words about how she was better off not knowing. The following week, Jennifer had to go out for an unusual client meeting. She was scheduled to give a presentation at Pacific Bistro's headquarters. Because preparation took longer than expected, she left home later than planned. Take care, Martha came to see her off at the front door. Thank you, Mom. I'll be back this evening. A few minutes after Jennifer got in her car and left the house, Martha hurriedly made a phone call. Linda. Jenny just left. Let's discuss that matter we've been talking about, the three of us with your father. Linda left work early, Robert canceled his scheduled volunteer activities, and the three gathered in the living room. "This has gone on long enough," Martha began. "Jenny is a smart girl. Don't you think she's noticed that something's wrong with how we've been acting lately? But what are we supposed to do now?" Robert held his head in his hands. "The child has built her own life. She's living happily." "That's exactly why," Linda said tearfully. "Don't you understand how heavy this secret we've been keeping is? I've been living with this secret since I was 8 years old." The three were discussing a major secret that went to the very core of Jennifer's life. However, the details remained locked in their hearts at this point. Meanwhile, Jennifer, having finished her presentation to high praise from her clients, was heading home in good spirits. However, as she neared the house, her thoughts turned to her family's recent behavior. "I wonder what they meant about me being better off not knowing." The doubt in Jennifer's heart was growing day by day. Her beloved family was hiding something. Something that had been a major secret related to her life for over 30 years. When she arrived home, her family greeted her with their usual faces. However, Jennifer's sharp observational skills didn't miss the traces of tension that remained in their eyes. Something was happening. And that something might shake the very foundation of her life. The second week of November brought an important day for Jennifer. She was scheduled to give the final presentation of the Pacific Bistro brand renewal project at the board meeting. The meeting was set to begin at 2 p.m., and she had been preparing meticulously since morning. "Today's a big day," Martha said as she prepared her daughter's breakfast. "I'm sure it will go well." "Thank you, Mom. This is the culmination of 3 months' work, so I absolutely want to make it a success." Jennifer did a final check of her presentation materials and headed to the venue in a wheelchair-accessible specialized vehicle. Pacific Bistro's headquarters was a modern high-rise building in downtown San Diego, and she was to give her fateful presentation in the boardroom on the 23rd floor. When she arrived at the conference room, the executives were already seated. Jennifer suppressed her nervousness and began the presentation she had prepared. New logo design, unified color palette, menu layout conscious of target demographics, and interior concepts that maintained individuality for each location while maintaining overall unity. All the passion and ideas she had poured into the project over 3 months were displayed on the screen. "Magnificent," exclaimed CEO Michael Reynolds. "This is exactly what we were looking for. The perfect balance of tradition and innovation." Praise came from other executives as well, and Jennifer breathed a sigh of relief in her heart. After 3 hours of presentation and Q&A, the project was approved unanimously. "Ms. Hartman, truly excellent work," said Marketing Director Sarah Johnson, extending her hand for a handshake. "We definitely want to build a long-term partnership going forward." Jennifer headed home with her heart dancing with joy. However, around 4 p.m., an unexpected call came in. It was an urgent call from the client. "I'm sorry, Ms. Hartman," came the voice of the CEO's secretary. "Regarding today's scheduled final meeting with Reynolds, he's been rushed to the hospital with a sudden illness, and we'd like to postpone it until tomorrow." "Of course. Is he all right?" "It appears to be mild dehydration. They say if they observe him overnight, there should be no problem. Could we schedule for the same time tomorrow?" Because of the sudden schedule change, Jennifer ended up coming home 3 hours earlier than expected. Normally she would return around 7 p.m., but today she arrived in front of her house at 4:30. She transferred from the car to her wheelchair and went up the usual entrance ramp, looking forward to reporting today's success to her family. However, when she put her hand on the front door, she stopped at the voices coming from inside the house. She could hear her parents' and sister's voices coming from the direction of the living room. Normally she would have opened the door without hesitation and called out, "I'm home," but sensing something serious in the tone of the conversation, Jennifer unconsciously stopped. "I can't take this anymore," came Linda's voice. She was clearly crying, her voice trembling. "I know," Robert answered heavily. But what are we supposed to do now? Then Martha's voice continued. That voice had a coldness in it that Jennifer had never heard before. That child still hasn't noticed anything, so we're lucky. Martha was laughing. But it wasn't the loving laughter of a mother. It was laughter with a different, more calculating and cruel ring to it. Jennifer's heart began to beat violently. She set the brake on her wheelchair and pressed her body against the door, straining to listen. But Mom, Linda's voice continued. If she found out the truth about the accident, it would be terrible. Because actually, Linda's words were cut off there. However, for Jennifer, those few words alone were more than enough. The truth about the accident. A cold shudder ran through Jennifer's entire body. For 32 years, she had believed that she became paralyzed from the waist down after falling down the stairs when she was 6 months old. It was a story her parents had told her many times. The tragic story of how she, as a crawling baby, had fallen down the stairs in a moment of inattention. However, the conversation she had just heard suggested there was a hidden truth to that accident. We've kept it hidden for over 30 years, Robert's voice continued. Is there any point in telling the truth now? But Daddy, Linda said through her sobs. I've been suffering from guilt all this time. Ever since I was 8 years old. Every time I look at Jenny, I remember what happened that day. You did nothing wrong, Linda, Martha's voice became gentle. You just did what we told you to do that time. We're the ones who were wrong. Jennifer forgot to breathe as she listened intently. Her sister Linda had been carrying guilt since she was 8 years old. That was related to that accident that happened when Jennifer was 6 months old, when Linda was 8 years old. Considering the insurance money, Robert's voice could be heard again. That choice wasn't wrong. Because of that money, we were able to give Jenny the best treatment, and we could buy this house. Insurance money. In Jennifer's mind, puzzle pieces began to come together in a horrifying pattern. Something for insurance money. Something that wasn't an accident. And something that 8-year-old Linda was involved in. But we were the ones who actually did it, Martha's voice mixed with regret for the first time. At that time, your spinal cord. Don't say any more, Robert interrupted his wife's words with a strong tone. It's over and done with. Jenny is living happily. Isn't that enough? Jennifer leaned back in her wheelchair. She felt all the strength draining from her body. Spinal cord. Intentionally. Insurance money. These words were swirling in her head. If that child found out the truth, would she forgive us? Martha's voice became small. There's no way she'd forgive us, Linda answered through her tears. I wouldn't forgive either, if the positions were reversed. Jennifer quietly released the brake on her wheelchair and moved away from the entrance without making a sound. She wheeled to the shadow of the neighboring house's garage, and only there took a deep breath. Everything she had believed for 32 years was a lie. The devoted care from loving parents. Her sister's warm support. The pride in accepting her disability and living positively. Everything was a fiction built on top of a terrible crime. Jennifer took out her cell phone with trembling hands. She wanted to ask someone for help, but realized there was no one she could trust. She had hardly any close relationships outside of her family. And that family was the very perpetrator who had destroyed her life. After spending about 10 minutes by the garage regaining her composure, Jennifer made up her mind. She had to know the truth. And she had to seek justice. She turned her wheelchair toward the house and this time approached the front door boldly. She put on her usual smile, opened the door, and called out brightly. I'm home. The presentation was a great success. The three people who hurriedly came out of the living room still had traces of their serious expressions from moments before. However, they desperately forced smiles and congratulated Jennifer on her success. Congratulations, Jenny, Martha hugged her daughter. In that embrace, Jennifer harbored a new determination in her heart. Never again would she be deceived by this false affection. She would reveal the truth and achieve justice. That was the only way to reclaim the life that had been stolen from her for 32 years. That night, Jennifer couldn't sleep at all. After her family had gone to bed, she sat quietly at her computer in her room. She was researching ways to obtain medical records from 32 years ago. She found that under California law, patients themselves could request disclosure of past medical records. The next morning, while her family was preparing breakfast as usual, Jennifer called San Diego General Hospital where she was born. Medical Records Department speaking. My name is Jennifer Hartman. I would like to request disclosure of my medical records from when I was born in 1991. Understood. You are the patient yourself, correct? We will send you the necessary paperwork. Please fill it out and return it with a copy of your identification. Processing takes about a week. After hanging up, Jennifer took a deep breath. 1 week. She had to continue acting for 1 more week until she knew the truth. Jenny, breakfast is ready, came Martha's voice. Coming, Mom. Sitting at the dining table facing her family, Jennifer desperately tried to maintain her composure. The people she had believed were a loving family until yesterday were actually criminals who had intentionally disabled her. Accepting this fact was far too painful. Linda is coming for dinner tonight, Martha said. Let's celebrate your project success. Thank you, Mom, Jennifer forced a smile. That afternoon, Jennifer took another action. She looked for a trustworthy law firm. After researching online, she contacted Justice and Rights Law Firm in San Diego, which had a track record in disability rights advocacy. My situation is a bit complicated, and I'd prefer to meet in person for consultation if possible. Understood. How about 2 p.m. tomorrow? In the evening, Linda came as promised. As the 4 family members sat around the dining table eating dinner, the conversation appeared harmonious on the surface. However, Jennifer could see deep anguish etched in Linda's expression. Linda, haven't you been tired lately? You don't look very well, Jennifer asked with concern. Linda started and answered hastily. I'm fine, Jenny. Work has just been a little busy. Don't overdo it. If you have any worries, you can always talk to me. At that moment, tears welled up in Linda's eyes. Thank you, Jenny. You really are so kind. Linda's voice was trembling. Seeing her sister tormented by guilt, Jennifer felt complex emotions. Linda might be a victim too. She might have just been an 8-year-old child caught up in adults' crimes. The next day, Jennifer visited the law firm. The attorney in charge, David Carter, was an experienced human rights lawyer in his mid-50s. Ms. Hartman, what kind of consultation is this? Jennifer explained in detail what she had heard in the conversation the day before. Attorney Carter's expression became increasingly serious as the story progressed. If your speculation is correct, this is serious crime involving assault and insurance fraud. First, we need to check the medical records. I've already submitted a disclosure request. I should have them next week. Excellent. There's another important matter. We'll probably need direct dialogue with your sister as well. Whether she'll cooperate as a witness will be the key to this case. A week later, the medical records arrived. Jennifer opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside were detailed medical records from 32 years ago. The diagnosis read, spinal cord injury from the 2nd to 4th lumbar vertebrae. The nature of the trauma is inconsistent with a fall downstairs. Rather, the possibility of direct damage from a sharp instrument is high. Furthermore, there was a shocking entry in the attending physician's observations. There were inconsistencies between the parent's explanation and the actual trauma pattern, and the possibility of child abuse was considered, but because the parents had connections with board members of the hospital, no detailed investigation was conducted. Jennifer shed tears as she read the documents. 32 years ago, there had been a doctor who tried to reveal the truth. However, because of her parents' social status, that voice had been silenced. That night, Jennifer called Linda. "Linda, could we meet alone this Saturday? I have something important to talk about." "Jenny? What's wrong? Your voice is shaking." "I want to talk in person. Please." On Saturday afternoon, the two faced each other in a quiet cafe. Jennifer placed copies of the medical records on the table. "Linda, look at this." As Linda began reading the records, her face turned pale. "Jenny, this is..." "Last week, when I came home early by chance, I heard the conversation in the living room," Jennifer said quietly. "About the truth of the accident, about the insurance money, and about the guilt you've been carrying since you were 8 years old." Linda suddenly stood up and walked toward the exit of the cafe. Jennifer hurriedly followed in her wheelchair. "Linda, wait." In the parking lot, Linda leaned against her car and broke down crying. "I'm sorry, Jenny. I'm so sorry," Linda apologized repeatedly through her tears. "What happened? Tell me the truth." Linda was silent for a long time, but eventually opened her heavy mouth. "At that time, Dad and Mom were struggling with debt. Dad's business had failed, and we were on the verge of losing our house. That's when Mom took out a high-value injury insurance policy. Before you were born. And then, when you were 6 months old, Mom asked me to help. 'Will you play with Jenny?' she said. And there was a medical scalpel in the living room. Mom said, 'This is a special injection. It's to make Jenny a strong child.'" Jennifer gasped. 8-year-old me didn't understand anything. "I believed Mom's words and put the scalpel on your back." Linda continued through her sobs. "Blood came out, you wouldn't stop crying, and then the ambulance came. Mom made you do it. I found out later. Mom wanted to use my hands to hurt you. She thought that way, they wouldn't have direct responsibility. But actually, she held my hand and together we used the scalpel." Linda couldn't speak anymore. Jennifer was also crying. However, it wasn't anger toward her sister, but deep rage toward her parents. "Linda, you're a victim. An 8-year-old child couldn't possibly understand such a thing. But it was my hand that..." "No. Mom and Dad used both of us. You and I are both victims of their crime." From that day on, Jennifer and Linda decided to fight together. With Attorney Carter's cooperation, they prepared to charge their parents with assault and insurance fraud. Linda decided to cooperate as a witness and promised to testify in court about all the secrets she had carried for 32 years. On the day the charges were filed, Robert and Martha were arrested at their home. Their faces were etched with the despair of lies that had finally been exposed after many years. "Jenny, we loved you," Martha shouted as she was handcuffed. "If you had loved me, you wouldn't have hurt me," Jennifer answered calmly. "What you did wasn't love, it was exploitation." Now that the truth was revealed, Jennifer was about to take the first step toward a new life. 6 months later, the verdict was handed down at California Superior Court. Robert Hartman and Martha Hartman were found guilty of assault and insurance fraud and each received 15-year prison sentences. The defendants' actions constitute an extremely malicious crime of intentionally harming their own child, who should have been the most protected, for financial gain. Judge Margaret Wilson read the verdict with a stern expression. The defendants claim love for their daughter, but this is not love. This was a premeditated crime motivated by pure greed. Jennifer and Linda sat side by side in the courtroom. At the moment of the verdict, Linda quietly shed tears. The burden she had carried for 32 years had finally been lifted. "It's over," Linda whispered. "Yes, it's truly over," Jennifer squeezed her sister's hand. After the trial ended, Jennifer began a new life. She sold the house she inherited from her parents and moved to a new apartment in San Diego with an ocean view. In the bright, barrier-free designed room, she made a fresh start in life. Her relationship with Linda also entered a new phase, freed from the shadow of crime. The sisters began having dinner together once a week. This time they built a relationship based on true affection and understanding, not secrets and guilt. "When I'm with you, I feel like I can finally breathe," Linda said one day. "It was like I'd been holding my breath for over 30 years. "Me too," Jennifer smiled. "But from now on, we can both breathe freely." Jennifer also began participating in support groups with other survivors in similar situations. It was an organization called Survivors Circle, where people who had experienced abuse and fraud from family members gathered. There she was able to find a true family beyond blood relationships. "Even if you're related by blood, a relationship that hurts the other person isn't family," said Michael Thompson, the support group leader, one day. "Real family is a relationship based on choice and affection, and mutual respect." These words resonated deeply in Jennifer's heart. For 32 years from birth, she had been trapped in a cage called blood relations. But now that she knew the truth, she had gained the freedom to choose her own family. In terms of work, Jennifer's life also showed new developments. Due to her success with Pacific Bistro, one big project after another came her way. She established a small design company and began employing disabled designers in similar circumstances. "There are designs that can only be created by people who have overcome difficulties," that was her belief. A year later, Jennifer developed a deep relationship with a man named David Sanchez whom she met in the support group. He was also a survivor who had experienced betrayal from family, but his kindness and strength healed her heart. "When I'm with you, I understand the true meaning of family," David said one night. "Not blood relations, but choice. Not obligation, but affection. Not fear, but respect." Jennifer still lives with the constraint of a wheelchair. However, it no longer defines her. What matters is that she chooses her own life and is surrounded by people who truly love each other. One day, Linda came with an interesting proposal. "Jenny, why don't we write a book about our experience? It might help people in similar situations." "That's a great idea," Jennifer answered immediately. "How about The Chosen Family as the title?" The two wrote a memoir together, which was published the following year. This book gave hope to many family trauma survivors and became a bestseller. On a spring evening, Jennifer sat on the balcony of her oceanfront apartment. David was beside her, and a little distance away, Linda was talking happily with friends from the support group. "I'm happy," Jennifer murmured. "Yes, really happy." David squeezed her hand. Jennifer looked at the sunset and thought. Now freed from the chains called blood relations, she was truly free. And she understood from the bottom of her heart that true family is not something given at birth, but something built through love and choice. In her wheelchair, her heart soared more